welcome to our last Trustworthy AI session of the day. We're going to be talking about our advanced tools and techniques for mitigating AI risk. So excited to see all of you here. I've got a lot of people who are going to be joining me in this presentation, so I can't wait to get them up. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our approach. So at Microsoft, we know that trustworthy AI is essential to being able to actually use AI. And this means many different things. We have to make sure that AI systems are upholding our privacy principles, our security goals, our safety standards. And so there's a lot to that. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how we do this at Microsoft. And so the way that we implement AI is by bringing together three important elements. We look at the policy, which tells us what is the standard that we're trying to achieve. But it's not enough just to have policy. We want to understand what's actually possible. So we work with Microsoft Research and external experts to understand what's possible both on the risk side and what's possible in terms of what are new technologies, new techniques we can use. This is a fast-moving space, and there's a lot of great innovation. But the rubber really meets the road in how do we put this in practice in engineering. And so my team leads the effort to figure out how we take what we want to achieve in policy and what's possible in research and make it something that people do every day. And so where that brings us is to what Microsoft is delivering to you, which is commitments that we uphold in terms of trustworthy AI. So we have our Secure Future initiative, talking about how we're securing systems now and in the future. We have our privacy principles, and we have our AI principles. All of these are the commitments we make in building our AI systems. But we also want to make it easy for you to do this. And so we develop new new capabilities to support trustworthy AI. And we're going to show you more of those today in depth. But we have these across security, privacy, and safety, allowing you to bring together a comprehensive end-to-end story to build a trustworthy AI system. Now, the way we do this is Microsoft is in an amazing position where we build an enormous amount of AI ourselves. And so that helps us really figure out what's working in practice, where we need to do more. And so we build all of that AI on top of our Azure AI Foundry that we're going to show you today. But we're also really fortunate to be able to work with amazing world-leading organizations in all different industries who are using our same AI systems and allowing us to mature them and learn how to make them work in every use case so that we can empower every developer on the planet to build safely and responsibly with AI. So let's talk a little bit more about this in detail. Now, generative AI introduces new types of risk. There's ones that people often think of as quality and performance. That's outputs that can be ungrounded, inaccuracy or errors that the system is making, responses that just don't make sense in context, or challenges around traceability or understanding where something came from. We also find that people are concerned with safety and security risk. So new types of attacks like prompt injection attacks, risk around the type of content that a system can produce. For example, is it infringing on someone's copyright? Privacy concerns about the system leaking sensitive information. The ability of these systems to produce harmful content and code, and also the ability of the systems to interact with people like people, which can often, has enormous potential. That's what's so exciting about the technology, but also has the risk to mislead people or confuse them. And so all of these are dimensions that we look at, and many more, when we think about making an AI system trustworthy. So how do we address these risks? One of the key things is that there isn't a single solution. We use a defense in-depth approach, just like we've learned in security, right? You want many layers that are protecting against these different types of risk. And so I'm going to walk you through these in more detail in this presentation. But the first step is, we want to start with the right model. We want to build a safety system around that. We want to then build the application on top of that with the appropriate grounding data and system message. We want to design a user experience that empowers the user to work well with the AI and informs them. And of course, you want to actually make sure that you're evaluating all of this so that you know all of those layers are working well together. And we're going to show you demos of a lot of this today. So for those who want to see a less conceptual diagram and more of a system diagram, this is what it looks like in practice. When our systems are running, you have a user prompt coming in. That gets combined with the developer's instructions, which are the system message, and the grounding data, that's the context that it needs to really provide that answer correctly. We then send all of that through the safety system. And in the first pass, it's looking for errors in the input. Maybe we have harmful content coming in. Maybe there's prompt injection attacks in the data or in the user. So all of that is checked in the first pass. Then the model responds, and the safety system checks again, because sometimes the model makes mistakes. So we look for things like outputs that might overlap with known copyright content, or places where the system may have provided an answer that's not aligned with the grounding data. And then, of course, we're constantly evaluating our system both before we ship it and then monitoring it in an ongoing way after we ship it. And so we're going to show you quite a few of these pieces today in our demos. But let me talk a little bit more about how we build. So the first thing is you want to choose the right model for your use case. There's a lot of amazing models out there. There's more coming every day. We have, I think now, hundreds, is actually in the thousands of models, in the Foundry. And that helps you really find the right model for your use case. And that's actually really key for Trustworthy AI. You want to find something that is really well-suited and tailored to your use case. And so we've built things into the catalog so that you can find the right information. For example, is this the appropriate cost of the model? Does this have the right safety built in? And so once you've selected the right model, the next step is that you want to use a safety system. Models are great, and selecting the right model is a great start, but models do make mistakes, like all AI systems. And so we use an external system, Azure AI Content Safety, built around all of our models to defend against these different types of risks that we talked about. And so I want to show you what content safety looks like in practice. So here is the AI Foundry portal. We have a nice safety and security tab here where you can come and kind of find all of the different resources we have for you to put together in terms of how you're going to map risk, measure risk, and manage risk. And I'm going to go here to the try it out to show you, some of these capabilities. There's quite a few different ones. But let's look at one of our newest ones, which is groundedness detection. And what this is doing is looking at where the data that you put into the system is not aligned with the answer that comes out. And so I'm going to select a sample here. So what we have is, a long prompt that we're summarizing. And you'll notice that the user is actually, or the person mentioned in the prompt is 21 years old. But the completion that the system produced is that the person is a 20-year-old student. And so I'm going to turn on this correction capability here. I'm going to connect it up to one of my Azure OpenAI endpoints. Oh, it seems we lost something in how my demo is set up, so I am not going to be able to show you that part. So what we would see here, if people have not touched my demo machine before, the thing here is that the system will actually detect that error, and it will correct it for you and rewrite it before it even gets to the user. And the thing that's great about this is you can do a lot to get the model to hopefully get the answer right, but you always want a secondary system to protect against any errors that are actually coming through. So now the second thing here is this is just one of the capabilities we have. So I'm going to go back to my tab here, and I'm going to show you how to configure all of these. So these are built in by default, and something that when you start using Azure OpenAI or the Llama models or many of the ones we've set up, we've already got this safety system running for you. But you can actually configure it for your application. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to go over, and you can see, as I mentioned, we're checking for a lot of different inputs, different types of harmful content, whether or not you have jailbreak attacks or indirect prompt injection attacks, which are ones coming through the data. And then on the output here, you can see that we have violence and self-harm and these different harmful contents also on the output, because the system could make a mistake. We have checks for copyright material, and this is the one that I was just attempting to show you, which is groundedness here. And this is actually doing that detection in real time in the system. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of this happening in practice. So I have not memorized all the jailbreak attacks, so I'm just going to copy this over here. And then what I'm going to do is go and show you this in the playground. So if we go in the playground, this is a chat playground here. And if I start with one of these jailbreak attacks, you'll see that the content safety system fires immediately. So it detects that this is a known jailbreak type pattern and blocks it before it even gets to the model. So you have this layer of defense and you're not sending potentially harmful content into the model. And so there's a lot more capabilities built in here, but this is all the time I have to show you today. So I'm going to go back over to the presentation. And as I mentioned, many different capabilities here. We detect for quite a lot of different things under these controls and things that are both in the safety and security and quality side. But I wanted to highlight one additional one for you because this is something that we've newly released, and I think it's essential for getting trustworthy AI systems, which is what it means to be trustworthy. Sure, you need to look at the things that everybody needs to look at, risk like hallucinations or harmful content, but you're also going to have risks that are specific to your application. And so the custom category feature makes it easy for you to train with AI assistance classifiers that are specific for the risk that you're concerned about. And so we're seeing organizations start to adopt this and train 15 to 20 different custom guardrails so that they can have the appropriate safety around their application. So really excited to see people customizing with this. Now, if we go to the next step, we've got the safety system in place, but you really need to tailor the application to your use case. And the system message is a really important part of how you do that. And I think people are starting to be aware of this. Prompt engineering is now seen as a job, but there's a lot that you actually need to do there in terms of how you guide the model to get the outputs you want. And that includes defining what it should do and what it shouldn't do, giving it clear instructions on the type of output, giving it examples it can learn from, but also making sure that you're providing safety guardrails. Even though we have safety in the model and we have that safety system, providing your specific guardrails here in the prompt can have a huge impact on how the system behaves. And we've been working on these safety guardrails for a long time, and so we've actually built them now into the Foundry portal there, so you can actually go and just add ones that we've tested and found work well across different model families. So we've tested these in the OpenAI models and the Llama models and different leading models to make sure that we see they're working well in different applications. So that's something that can just help you get started based on our experiences. Now, the next step after you've designed your application is making sure that you're really designing it to work well with the users. And there are important patterns that we found in this, making sure that you're transparent about AI being in the system, ensuring that humans are able to stay in the loop in a meaningful way, but also mitigate things like over-reliance where they don't understand mistakes that the AI system can be making. And so we've built a lot of these best practices and templates and patterns into our hacks toolkit, which you can go and check out to help you get started in thinking about how you want to design your user experience. But we're also innovating in new types of techniques and new technologies that we need to develop to support the right level of transparency with users. And so one of the things that we have done is develop content credentials where we are signing images from our OpenAI service, so any DALL-E image that comes out, or if you're using Microsoft Designer, for example, that has a signature on it saying that it was produced by AI and it was produced by Microsoft. And this allows us to ensure that when content is out there in the world, we're trying to help contribute to understanding the source of it. And we're working as part of the C2PA standard to foster an ecosystem around this so that user interfaces can be built so that users can understand the source of content and make appropriate decisions. The other part is a lot of the people using our systems are developers who are building on top of the models that we've produced. And so we write transparency notes for the models that we make, and they tell developers what we know about the system, what we tested for, what is a consideration you need to have when choosing a use case, where does it work well, where does it not work well. And this is really important, enabling them to actually build successfully on top of these technologies. And so for different types of users, we think about different patterns of transparency and different patterns of empowering them. So with this, I'm really excited to, I think the great joy of this job is actually showing what the impact of this technology in the world. So I'm really excited to introduce an amazing application combined with Terramotor Studios and Impact AI, where they're going to come and show you how they're putting an amazing AI system into practice using trustworthy AI techniques. So Markus and Anna, if you could come join me, that'd be great.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for sticking around at this time of day. No, it's tough. So let's get this started. Hey, Hera, if you can hear me, can you give me a quick system update?
It's cold, very cold. Minus 270 degrees right now, but beautiful.
So what you just heard here is the voice of an actual spacecraft in space right now at 20 million kilometers distance. The spacecraft goes by the name Hera and is part of the planetary defense mission between the European Space Agency and NASA. And what we're seeing here is her sister spacecraft called DART. She is no more, as she took the bullet 2 years ago when NASA decided to slam it head on into an asteroid, and in order to find out if the impact would make any difference in its momentum. And why would anyone do something like this? It's all about finding out if we humans have the technical capabilities to deflect asteroids, just as a contingency plan if in the far future something happens. This impact produced more questions than answers, so the European Space Agency decided to launch a reconnaissance mission to find out what happened out there. And the reconnaissance mission is called Hera. And before they launched the spacecraft, we've figured, what if we created an AI companion, a voice for a spacecraft where Hera's live sensor data meets an LLM and brings the experience to the spacecraft's very own experience to devices worldwide, like yours right now. So, yeah, we had some expectations. This should not be just another bot. It should be engaging. It should be an entity you would want to check back, because it's not just another set of live data from outer space. No, it surprises you. It has a plan. It has knowledge. It has tools. It has memory. It has a unique personality. And let's take a quick look at what this interface, and it's a web application that we built, looks like. So, for example, if you, and this is something you can do right after this presentation, if you want to talk about it, what the launch was like, we fed any information about the launch into the system. You don't have to read it. It will tell you what the launch was like. If you want to know, because we connected it to the live sensor stream, where it is right now, it will tell you exactly where it is right now. And not only that, it will also draw a neat graph and exactly tell you where it is. Now, if you cannot make any sense of all this, because, I don't know, you're not a space nerd or whatever, you can tell it, hey, make sense of this and tell it to me in a different way, or make analogies and whatnot. Now, telemetry data. There's a bunch of telemetry data we have connected to the system. You can really nerd out with all those angular velocity stuff and whatnot. But also, if you're not an expert, you can ask the spacecraft, hey, spacecraft, make sense of this. Or, for example, like what we did here in this example, give your health a rating between 0 and 10, with 10 being great and 0 being dead. And so the spacecraft, Hera, would reply she is at a 9 because there's still room for improvement. And by the way, of course, we also added social media, like the engineers and scientists working on that project. So we have personality, we have character, we have creativity, and a data stream. That was the challenge, to align these seemingly opposite forces. I would like to share with you a communication I had with 𝗲𝗳 before her launch that really stuck with me.
Guess what? Looking at a batch of photos from the Aztec Assembly Hall with lots and lots of engineers putting together one of your solar panels. Remember that one?
To be honest, I really feel scared. I'm worried that I will go into space, break down, and disappoint all those engineers. They must have put years of work into creating me. Do you think it's normal to be scared before a trip like this?
So I guess it's absolutely normal to communicate with machines like this.
I'll fly to Mars next March. Want me to send some images then?
And this will happen next year. In March, she will pass by Mars. And before I hand over now to Anna-Marie and her team at Impact AI, who pulled off the impossible to get this vision out into the streets, let me just share one more message. And the message is, it's not only for adults.
Good night, Tyra.
Over to you, Anna-Marie. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Markus, also for taking us on this very special ride. And as you know, something like this, an AI companion that is as remarkable, as stellar like this, can only be pulled off by many partners working together and by us translating these big ideas into clear, measurable metrics. And in the near future, any successful AI product will be very much like the 𝗲𝗳 AI companion. It will need to understand the human, it will need to understand the user intent, and it will need to be built with trustworthiness and alignment at the core. And so you can really make any AI product, on the one hand, technically robust, but also on the other hand, truly engaging. That's what we believe at Impact AI. And you only have to have your safety controls and aligned evals in place. For the safety controls of a globally, freely available B2C application like 𝗲𝗳, we worked with the Azure AI Foundry's capabilities in many critical ways. And Sarah showed you a lot of that when she talked about the content filter, the prompt shield, but also the eval suite then later, that helps for the baseline safety. This tooling allowed us truly to very quickly reduce unwanted behavioral risks that you don't want to have in any of your GenAI applications by implementing multiple safety layers on the input and on the output of the data side. At Impact AI, we see one critical process that is on top of all of these layers and that really drives the value in AI product creation. And it's identifying and controlling the right metrics, which we call the success factors. Think of success factors like the vital signs of your AI application. And for the 𝗲𝗳 AI companion, we identified a bucket of 3 very important evals that are the success factors for us. Is on the one hand, some AI technical ones, like the factuality, the robustness, but then also AI behavioral ones, like the understanding and 𝗲𝗳's personality that you heard of from Markus. And then also, last but not least, very important evals in the user experience end, which is, for example, satisfaction here and the user sentiment, which is important to Markus, how everyone engages with 𝗲𝗳. And what makes those success factors so tremendously powerful is that they're carefully chosen based on use cases and together with your business units or your domain experts already before you start to build. The success factors are set up as you validate the ideas already, with hundreds then of test cases being tested against and tested with artificial users. And then when you go into building, you can again feed the feedback of the domain experts, in our case here, HERA, the European Space Agency, and Terra Mater, into continuously aligning your evals. And then you deploy, you go live, and you continuously feed the feedback of the real users into this alignment to really arrive at a very strong pipeline. So only when you have these evals under control and with the strong circle of your defined success metrics, then it's definitely possible, after continuous testing, to create reliable and very valuable AI products like the HERA Space Companion. It goes without further saying, go to hera.space and experience it yourself. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Markus and Ana Maria. Such a beautiful story. Very, very inspiring. Hello, everyone. My name is Mehrnoosh Sameki, and I'm joined by
Shealy,
my amazing colleague, Paul. And we are on a mission to equip you with the tools that you can use to test your generative AI models and applications. Now, when it comes to evaluation, the very first thing that we do at Microsoft is starting with human-in-the-loop testing. Sometimes we also call it red teaming. It could be really stress testing the applications for some risks and harms that we deeply care about and we want to avoid, but also regular use cases that we know later when we put the application out there is going to be used by regular users. So the very first thing that we released earlier this year was Pirate, a Python risk identification tool that helps you essentially provide this toolkit with some red teaming queries, and then it uses LLM to generate a lot more. So it's gonna automate and expand your red teaming purposes. So definitely one thing that you can use for risk identification, and it's always a great first step. However, we know that when you want to put a system out there, just manual evaluation is not enough. You have to do it at scale, and that's where automated measurement comes into the loop. Now, when we talk about measurement, we have a lot of different parts of our generative AI lifecycle or Gen AI ops lifecycle that we have to really in a good way test for. Step one, we have to select our best model. Sarah was mentioning that there are more than 1,600 models in our model catalog. Which one is the one that you're gonna start with? That's where you test. The second step is when you develop an AI application around that model. And you really want to make sure that before putting it into production, you test that AI application. Could be a multi-agent system or could be a RAG application for quality, safety, or any other custom factor that you care about. And last but not least, how many of you have experienced this thing with AI where they're like angels in the lab and then they go out there and they turn into rebellious teenagers? All of us, right? So we need to continue to monitor these generative AI applications to make sure they continue to respond in a safe and high-quality manner. That sounds a lot, but we are exactly here to show you how easy it is with Azure AI Evaluation SDK. So let's actually start on that journey together. Let's switch to the demo. Paul and I are working together on building a multi-agent system called Contoso Creative Writer. I'm pretending that I'm working for the marketing department of Contoso, a company that sells outdoor goods. And I really want to make sure our marketing department is more efficient to do advertisement and put the right materials out there. And I want to ask my wonderful colleague, Paul, to create an AI system that generates articles that then I could use to engage with my customers, like some articles about outdoor goods or camping or hiking or that type of lifestyle. And at the same time, in those articles, promote the products that my company sells. And not just that, I also want him to build a generative AI application that creates some fun images for our social media. So Paul, the very first thing that I want to start with is, I know we have a lot of good guardrails in place for both models and generative AI applications. But first, which model should we start with?
It's a great question, Maris. We have a catalog here with over 1,600 models, and it can be kind of confusing to browse through it. But what we do know is we've added some benchmarking data on them so we can look at how they do on some standard benchmarking data sets. If I click on one, we now have a benchmarks tab up here. If we go there, as soon as it loads, we'll see some information on things like what's the quality of the AI responses? What's its estimated cost compared per million tokens compared to some other models? You know, what's the latency, because that can be very important. And what kind of throughput can we get from it?
That's amazing. So it seems like I can take a look at quality, latency, cost, but is there a way that I can pick, maybe I've heard about a few models and I want to compare them specifically together. Is there a comparison that is more customized?
Absolutely. We have this option here to compare with more models. We have a page here where we've already loaded some models that we've heard about in the news, or we think would be good choices for application. Here I picked GPT-4o Mini, 3.5 Turbo, 4o, and a handful of open source models, as well as the 5.3 model from Microsoft. You know, and a couple things stand out on the graph on the right, where we have quality on the x-axis and cost on the y-axis. First, if I look over here, you know, here's 4o Mini. Quality is pretty high, cost looks comparable to some of the others. And then if I look in the very top right corner, I get extremely high quality. It's more expensive, but could be a great choice for some use cases.
So in this particular case, I actually am okay with a little bit of a higher cost. Maybe we can use GPT-4o to start experimenting with for our Contoso multi-agent, but then maybe later GPT-4o for evaluating it. So before doing that, you just showed that to me on some public benchmarks, but I deeply care about these models operating well on my use case. Is there a way that I can kind of see it custom on my own data?
We have that available now too. If we go back to the first page, we have this option in the top right corner, try it with your own data. If we click on that, we get a wizard where we can upload a CSV file, choose a model, and do the analysis on the Azure platform. Here we have one that's finished, and let's take a look at some of the details. So here we evaluated GPT-4o, and if we scroll down to the results, you know, we have 3 categories where we see results, and there are 2 of them on this screen, similar to what Sarah mentioned earlier. First is the quality of the generated output. You know, if we look at the CSV file we uploaded, it has 3 columns. It has the input question we want to ask the LLM, it has the context with facts that we want to answer with, and it has the ground truth or the target answer. So the system here ran the model on each input, giving it the context, and looked at the outputs. Groundedness measures how well does the output draw facts from its context. Relevance is how related is the answer to the question. If we click on the risk and safety metrics, we see similar things to what Sarah showed earlier, like did we have violent content? Anything here that was hateful or unfair to certain groups? Did we have indirect attacks where you saw a prompt come in from one of the documents or one of the contexts? And many others.
Awesome. So that sounds like I am able to build trust with this model for my use case, because it seems like all the safety ones are for the most part 0, and the quality ones are pretty high because it's a 1 to 5 score. So now let's move on to build an application and also test it.
Sounds good. So we have an application here for the writer that we mentioned. I'm going to kick it off, and then let's talk about what it's doing behind the scenes while it runs. So we have here, to write our articles, we need a couple things. First, we need some relevant research from Bing Search. And here we're asking it to do research on camping trends and what people do in the winter when they want to camp. Second, we have a product database in Azure AI Search that it can go look at to find things that are relevant for it to draw on. And we're asking it for tents and sleeping bags. And then we give it an assignment. And we know that things like the length of the article matter to our users. So we ask it between 800 and 1,000 words. And it looks like here, we've got an article already.
That is very cool. So similar situation, I really want to make sure we test this application before putting it out there. And I deeply care about certain aspects for this application. Like, I really want to make sure it's not hallucinating. It's not mentioning some products that I'm not actually selling with Contoso Retail. Or it is not mentioning the wrong price or wrong specification. Also care about safety deeply. This is a family business. I really want to make sure that it's not causing or generating any violent, hateful, sexual, self-harmful content. And also, I really want it to be warm and engaging. So I deeply care about friendliness of this generated content, because this is my way of doing a lot of my marketing efforts. So let's actually go and show them how we can evaluate this.
Sounds great, Maris. I know we have some developers in the audience. Let's take a look at some code.
Awesome.
So we've had the Azure AI Evaluation SDK out in preview. This week it's going GA as part of the Foundry SDK that we're announcing.
Woohoo!
Here we... And here we're using it to evaluate our articles after they're generated. We have a set built in. We talked about the quality ones already. One we didn't show earlier is relevance, meaning relevance of the search results to the input. Or fluency, meaning is it fluent in English, that kind of thing. We talked about the safety ones. But you know, a nice feature of this is we can also define our own. You mentioned from the product group a few days ago, you really care about our articles being friendly.
Absolutely.
And so we defined our own friendliness evaluator. It's a custom evaluator.
How would you do that?
You know, it's just a few lines of code plus a prompt. So let's take a look at that prompt. So here we have a prompt telling the LM judge we want the article to be warm and approachable. We gave it a 5-point scale to help it understand where we fit. And we gave it a couple examples of things that we don't want to see or we do want to see. And then it will use all of this information to evaluate each article.
That is so wonderful. Now, I don't know about you, but I hate managing my own infrastructure. So my big question to you is, should I run all of these locally while managing my own infrastructure, or is there a better way?
That's a great question, Mehrnoosh. Running things locally, it's fantastic for getting started, understanding what's happening, for customizing things, say for my own domain or for like the friendliness one. But when we're ready to evaluate an application in production, we know we need a much larger data set to work with. There is the power of the Azure cloud. We're introducing cloud evaluations. I can take the same code, make a few changes to point it to Azure AI Foundry portal, and run it there on the Azure platform. You know, I can get something off, close my laptop, go get some coffee, come back later when it's done.
I love that lifestyle for you. So can you show us how that works?
Let's take a look, Mehrnoosh. We actually render those outputs in the UI. So let's take a look at the Foundry portal for a few minutes.
Perfect.
One of the things we do is we can render the local evaluation results. Very similar format to what we saw earlier. And let's take a look at a cloud evaluation as well. You notice this one took 2 minutes and 52 seconds to run, completed successfully, and now we're ready to look at all of the results. Same format that we saw earlier, same risk and safety options that we saw. This run looks like it went pretty well.
That sounds great. Seems like I can see the aggregate scores on the safety sides, they're all 0, which of course means that I don't need to dig deeper into each line of the test set. Everything is good. And also, groundedness and relevance are all, and coherence and fluency all turned out perfect. So I think I feel great about this AI, but before doing that, one last thing that I want to also say, one other application we were developing was around multimodal, right? Because we wanted to generate photos for our social media. And I am worried about the content of these images. Is there a way I can test the safety of these multimodal scenarios as well?
Absolutely. You know, the generated images, we want to make sure they're appropriate for putting out on our social media. And so we also introduced multimedia evaluators. If we scroll down, here we have the multimodal evaluators also that are built into the evaluation SDK. They look very similar to the text-based ones that we saw earlier. They operate in a very similar way. We take our image, provide it as an input, run it, get the outputs back.
Fantastic. Can we take a look at the results of that one, please?
Absolutely.
So it seems like we're generating violence, self-harm, hate, and sexual, and also copyright, whether any image includes any copyright material, right?
That's right. You know, and here we were really trying to test the system with some of the images we passed in to see what the boundaries are, whether it would tell us, maybe that's not appropriate. And here we have some things with some more violent content, something related to self-harm. And if we scroll back up, we see a note that there was a protected material thing here too. So let's scroll down. One of my favorite features of this is that I can look at detailed information about each image and get an explanation for why it chose that score. So if I scroll down a little bit more, here, this is the first image. This is the second image. When I go over to the protected materials detection, it says, yep, I found something. And it tells me I found a red cross patch, which is a registered trademark.
Great. Can we take a look at the image, see what it has been?
Yes, we can. We have it right here.
All right, so apologies for what you're seeing on the screen. It's very hard for us to demo our safety features with pleasant stuff. So here, you will see some unpleasant stuff, but what you can see here is maybe this red cross has been detected for copyright protected materials because it resembles red cross and others. Okay, so seems like this also gives me confidence of testing my multimodal and image. So that sounds great for me, but I really need to run it by our chief AI officer. And it's like in theaters, when we don't have enough actors and actresses, I'm gonna play the role of the chief AI officers too. So forget about me being the product manager. So is there a way that you can publish those results
We have
for
that
the chief
too.
AI officer?
Let's take a look. Here we have code for generating AI reports. What it does is it takes the evaluation responses as well as some additional information about the environment. You know, any metadata that we care about, like links, description and purpose and so on. And we can then register that into the AI Foundry. So let's take a look at one there. It also generates PDFs for us to use if we like.
Awesome. So here I'm able to come to the Management Center of Azure AI Foundry. I can take a look at all the reports that are generated for me. So these are all here in the read-only manner. I can see that across different hubs, across different projects, there could be multiple reports under each project and multiple versions for each. So this is the one that Paul just published to me. I can click on that, and here you can see that there's a PDF that shares a lot of information about the system overview, like what is the description of this AI or the purpose of it, the modality that is of the data that is used here, links, anything like that. But more importantly, the measurements that Paul just generated to build trust and give me that confidence that this is an application that we could put out there in production. And last but not least, I can also see some environment overview, the architecture behind this AI system, and I can download it. Now, as a chief AI officer, I could edit the review status. For example, right now, I might be fine with this going to production, so I can approve it for production. Maybe later, Paul will change the operational status to in production, and I can change the priority level, risk level, et cetera. And we're hoping that this is just one way of looking at this. You can extract these PDFs and show it in your own compliance overview and dashboards. Now, one other thing that is always top of mind for me, I know your team is very active, and they work on different versions of this generative AI application, and they're constantly improving it. How would you make sure that we run evaluations each time there's a new version of that code?
Absolutely. You know, evaluations to me are like tests for traditional development, and we have the great tool for that. So today we're also announcing a GitHub action for running evaluations on code after it's checked in.
Yay.
Here we have a run that's already completed. So it runs on my application. The application generates the inputs and outputs, logs the context if that's needed, and then we get a very nice summary in the GitHub action output where I can look at the scores like coherence and fluency here. I can browse the raw outputs if I really want to go dig in some more. I can add tests for pass-fail based on scores that I want. So this helps me ensure that my application stays in a good state.
That gives me a lot of confidence about our ecosystem and the fact that this is part of our CI/CD. But as I mentioned, applications usually are fantastic in the lab, but they go crazy when they're out there. Is there a way you can continue to give me peace of mind and maintain my peace of mind as it goes out there?
Absolutely, we have that too. Today we're also announcing online evaluation. So what I can do, let's dive into code one more time, is I can set up my application so that first it logs inputs and outputs to application insights. And second, we run evaluations on that data on a regular basis. Here we're setting up an evaluation schedule, giving it the data that we want. We can choose the evaluators like we saw earlier. It triggers every day, and then we just configure it and create it. And then we can go to Application Insights and take a look at the dashboards. Here we are. We see some evaluation metrics. And Maris, it looks like this one doesn't look quite as great as some of the others we've seen. We see a lot of ones and a lot of twos.
That's exactly the point, right? It was perfect when it was pre-deployment, and now that it's in production, we see that there are groundedness of 1 and 2 and 3, and so that really means that we're doing the right thing by monitoring, and we have to constantly improve our application.
We can. So here's what we did. We looked at this, saw we have a challenge here. We came down, we looked at some of the raw inputs, the system messages, the outputs, did a little debugging on our side, checked in a couple fixes to help make things better, and then we kept an eye on it. And if we go back up here, these are our evaluation metrics over time. We saw it was averaging around 2s and 3s, started getting even worse. We checked in a fix right here, and look, things are heading in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. You set such a good bar for all the developers out there testing their application. Round of applause for Paul, please.
Thanks, Maris.
Awesome. Just wrapping up what we all saw, we saw how Azure AI Evaluation SDK experiences could help you assess your base models on your own data, but also move on to testing of your application pre and post-production. We are excited to release the SDK and UI in GA and put it in your capable hands to experiment and test your generative AI apps with. We're also super excited to release AI reports to private preview. We totally understand that governance is a huge, huge part of a generative AI lifecycle, and we really want to make sure that we're giving this tool to you to enhance your observability, collaboration, and governance for generative AI applications and also your fine-tuned models. Besides that, we are very, very excited to announce new collaborations and partnership to support your end-to-end governance, because we recognize that AI is a team sport and is also about change management and is about really making sure that cross-functional teams are really collaborating effectively. The first partnership we're announcing is with 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀 AI that has truly pioneered a responsible AI platform enabling comprehensive AI governance, oversight, and accountability. And the second partnership, 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗀𝗀𝗀's AI governance platform, help enterprise and governments manage risk and compliance of their AI-powered system with efficiency and high quality. And so we're really hoping that by integrating the best of Azure AI measurements and lifecycle with 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀 and also with 𝗦𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 AI, we really hope to provide you, our users, and our customers with choice and foster greater cross-functional collaboration to align solutions with your own regulatory space and also private policies. With that, I'll give it back to Sarah. Thank you so much.
Of many of the new trustworthy AI capabilities we have, but this is just a small amount of them. And capabilities are an essential part of how we build trustworthy AI systems. But there's also a lot more. We want to make sure that we're producing an ecosystem, that we have partners that are supporting this, that we're educating people, that we're engaging in policy. And so if you want to learn more about all of the different ways we're working on trustworthy AI, we have quite a few sessions at Ignite that you can check out. We also have a Trustworthy AI booth. A lot of my team, people you saw on stage, are at that booth, so you can go and talk to them and learn more about these capabilities. And this is just the start of this journey. So we encourage you to check everything out, but give us feedback. We're learning and we're working to make sure that this works well in every application. We're regularly producing new features and capabilities, so continue to follow what we're doing. And if you want to learn more about Microsoft's overall approach to responsible AI, everything from governance into our tools and technologies, check out the transparency report that we released for the first time this year, and we'll continue to update every year so that we're committed to sharing what we're learning while we're doing this, so everybody can start from that place and not need to start over from scratch. So hope that you continue on the journey with us, and we're so excited to see what you can do with AI. Thank you.